Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're searching for an incredible novel, check out my Patreon page. Your support will help transform this story into an exciting audiobook. Join me on this adventure. By becoming a Patreon member, you'll be helping me keep creating and bringing this content to life. Thank you for being part of the journey.
Chapter 151. Chapter 149. Nick Fury's POV. What's gotten into you, Director? Why are you suddenly against Project Insight when you had been one of its greatest supporters from the very start? Alexander Pierce questioned me. Indeed, I was the one who supported Project Insight the most, but that was because I wanted to make Earth's defense even stronger through it. This project was built to protect the Earth from otherworldly forces, not for Hydra to use it to conquer the world. Alexander Pierce, the Secretary of Internal Security, was someone I had known for a long time. I knew him to be an ambitious man willing to take hard and sometimes unethical decisions. Yet I had never thought that he would be a Hydra spy, much less the leader of spies within the S.H.I.E.L.D. Then again, Pierce had turned some of my most loyal men to his side. Our biggest fault was that we had been too complacent against Hydra, as we already thought them to be finished. I can only say that Peter's sudden journey through the multiverse was a godsend for us. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s data from the otherworld was more than enough to find us in the right direction, and the most of the data had actually been correct, the error margin being less than 10%. I had even managed to find the proof that Pierce had connections with the Hydra, and today was the day I was going to arrest him for it. Can you please explain to me, Director Fury, why you are suddenly against Project Insight when it would not only enhance the country's might but also increase S.H.I.E.L.D.'s overall power? Pierce asked, still oblivious of the fact that I already knew his secrets. The data of the evidence which proved that Pierce and his men were Hydra spies had already been sent to the Council. All that was left to do was to arrest Pierce. But we had to hurry since we had found the proof only in the morning, which was immediately sent to the Council. The plan had to be completed before Pierce learnt of the fact that his existence as a Hydra spy had been found. These helicarriers will make S.H.I.E.L.D. the most powerful agency in the government. I can't believe that you are actually opposing it, Director, Pierce said as he pointed towards the new helicarrier being built. We were currently in a secret S.H.I.E.L.D. hangar where one of the new helicarriers was being built. A perfect place to call Pierce and arrest him since he would not find any escape route here. Would this helicarrier's benefits S.H.I.E.L.D. or Hydra? I asked Pierce frankly, since there was no need to continue this farce. As soon as I said these words, it seemed as if the entire facility had become silent. I also noticed Pierce's men stealthily moving their hand to their guns. As expected, they were Hydra spies. Honestly, I felt ashamed that so many Hydra spies had infiltrated into S.H.I.E.L.D., and I learnt about them only when it was too late, as they had already entered important positions. I beg your pardon, Director. Is it some kind of joke? Why would Project Insight ever be of help to Hydra? Pierce replied with a chuckle. He must be thinking that it was just a test for me to see if he was a Hydra spy or not. Unfortunately, he had long fallen into my trap. With a solid proof in my hand, it would be a piece of cake to take him into our custody. There is no need to pretend anymore, Pierce. I have solid proof that you are a Hydra spy. Moreover, you intend to use Project Insight to eliminate Hydra's enemies. Your time's over. As I said these words, Captain America and Wolverine appeared from our right and left side. Moreover, the men I brought with me also pointed their guns at Pierce and his men. So you found out, huh? Pierce said with a chuckle, openly admitting that he was indeed a Hydra spy. His men also pointed their guns at us as a response to our actions. The situation was tense and a fight could start any moment. How did you find out, Fury? I thought that our infiltration was near perfect. Pierce questioned curiously, even if guns were pointed at him. Was it Professor Xavier? Did you manage to open one of our spies' mind? I had told the High Command several times that we should eliminate him, but they rejected my proposal every time as it would reveal that Hydra was still active. Pierce said, guessing that it was because of Professor Xavier's telepathy that I could find his identity. That is something you can only guess. I replied indifferently. There was no need for Pierce to know anything more since he was going to end in our captivity. Don't think that I am going to be captured so easily just because you found my secret, Pierce said confidently as he signaled his men with his hands. Upon receiving the signal, two of his men unleashed metal claws from their wrists, revealing that they were actually Wolverine's clones. But that was something we had anticipated from the very start. After all, the evidence we had found was also a Wolverine's clone who was in one of Pierce's secret warehouses. Take care of them, Pierce ordered as he leapt behind a cabinet so as to hide from the gunfire which was about to start. Unfortunately though, he couldn't complete this action. Where do you think you are going? A voice sounded as Pierce was suddenly suspended in mid-air during his jump. His expression looked as if he was being strangled. Then, a figure suddenly materialized next to Pierce, who was revealed to be holding Pierce by his neck. His scaled, black-colored suit with red highlights revealed that the figure was Albion. Albion was the reason why I could so confidently engage Pierce without any fear. Because I knew that Albion was looking nearby in his invisible state. "Help me!" Pierce somehow shouted towards his men, who immediately pointed their guns at Albion. The Wolverine clones, on the other hand, threw away caution and rushed towards Albion and Pierce. Looks like they didn't have any proper training regarding this kind of situations, or perhaps Hydra's brainwashing had made them incapable of such thought. "Don't even think about it," Albion declared as he released lightning bolts towards Pierce's men. The streaks of red lightning struck Pierce's men at such speed that they couldn't even react. Even Wolverine's clones were stopped in their tracks because of Albion's lightning bolts. Captain America and Wolverine engaged both of them immediately so as to finish them off by taking advantage of their opening. "Still thinking that you can escape, Pierce?" I asked Pierce mockingly, who had now been put down by Albion. "Ha ha ha ha. It doesn't matter how many of us you capture or kill. We will always survive. Long live Hydra," Pierce proclaimed hysterically as he suddenly tried to perform a motion with his mouth I knew all too well. "What do you take me for?" Albion said as he struck Pierce at his neck, rendering him unconscious and preventing him from completing the motion. I immediately rushed over to Pierce and opened his mouth, revealing a capsule of cyanide in one of his teeth. These Hydra agents are utter lunatics, ready to kill people or even themselves for a cause which has long been defeated, I said, cursing the Hydra. "Don't worry, Director Fury. We will crush these bastards and annihilate them completely this time," Albion said to me, confident that we would destroy Hydra this time. Chapter 152. Chapter 150. Do you think that Pierce knows where this cloning laboratory is, where Wolverine's clones are being created? Because I honestly feel like these clones are literally never ending. Whenever we engage Hydra, they always appear. Like they are just cannon fodder for Hydra. Captain America asked as he looked at the unconscious Alexander Pierce, who was our key to every secret of Hydra. I, along with Wolverine and Captain America, were currently in a police van, taking Pierce to the X-Mansion where Professor, Jean and Emma would open this bastard's mind. As much as I wanted to take Pierce there instantly through a portal, it was just not possible for me. S.H.I.E.L.D. as a whole still didn't know that I, as well as the other students at Professor Xavier's school, were sorcerers. And Director Fury wanted to hide this fact as long as possible so as to give us a trump card. Pierce is our only source at this point. Mutants didn't exist in the world from which I and Emma obtained the information regarding Hydra. As such, this is a blank area in the data which we can only fulfill by ourselves. I replied. I still can't understand completely the concept of what you went through, Peter. This multiversal travel, I can't believe that there exists a world which is so similar to our own yet so different. It would have been easier for me to believe that you actually time traveled, Captain America said, revealing his feelings about the information I obtained from the other world. Well, it is obvious for you to be foreign to this concept, Captain. After all, the concept of multiverse is something which people had barely started hypothesizing about in your time. As such, this is something completely alien for you as a soldier from the World War II. I replied, knowing why Captain felt like this. Do you think that Bucky could still be alive? Under Hydra's control for so many years. It seems too wild even as a theory for me. Captain said, having trouble believing the information that his old friend Bucky Barnes was still alive as a Hydra assassin called Winter Soldier. It could be true. The data has not led us astray so far, I said, believing in the information I had brought. Why don't you check it yourself, Captain? Agent Natasha, who was driving the van, suddenly said to us. Upon hearing her words, I looked outside to find that 2 armored cars were chasing after us, men in combat suit with guns in their hands clearly visible inside the cars. So they finally appeared, Mr. Logan said as he unsheathed his claws, hungry for a fight. As we could not let the situation get risky, I had shocked Pierce's men to unconsciousness during the previous fight. As such, Mr. Logan was still raring for a fight. This was actually another reason why we were transporting Alexander Pierce in a police van. Because only in this way would Hydra send their men after us, allowing us to obtain even more information about their hidden assets. After all, we needed to ascertain if Hydra actually had produced super soldiers with a knockoff super soldier serum, or not like it was written in the data obtained from the other world. Finish them off immediately. Don't waste too much time on them. Also, try to keep them alive if possible. Agent Natasha instructed as she parked the police van in a secluded spot and all 3 of us stepped outside. No promises here, Mr. Logan replied with a wild grin. As the Hydra men came out of the cars, any doubt I had in my mind regarding the relevancy of the data disappeared. Because the one leading the Hydra men was a masked man with a metal arm. As per the S.H.I.E.L.D. records even in this world, he was a legendary assassin called Winter Soldier. However, as per the data I had obtained, he was Bucky Barnes, Captain's brainwashed friend. Bam! Bam! As soon as the Hydra men came out of their cars, they immediately started shooting at us, causing us to take cover. This indiscriminate gunfire also meant that they had no intention of leaving anyone alive, not even Alexander Pierce. Can Hydra do only this much? I said with a scoff as I casted a spell with my right hand and then slammed it on the ground. Several streaks of lightning emerged from my hand and then snaked across the ground towards the Hydra men. Though surprised by the sudden attack, the Hydra men tried to avoid the lightning streaks, proving that they were indeed trained men. Boom! Still, their evasion was not fast enough. Around 40% of them were shocked by the lightning streaks, rendering them unconscious. One of the cars had also been hit by the lightning streaks, causing it to explode into flames. New spell, kiddos? Mr. Logan asked upon seeing the effect of the spell. Yeah, it was far too easy for my lightning bolts to damage organs if they hit the upper body. That is why I learnt the ground thunder spell. I replied. Realizing that they were helpless against my lightning in long-distance combat, the Hydra men put away their guns and started closing the distance between us. I have to give their courage a salute though. They didn't run even when they knew that a single lightning bolt of mine was enough to kill them. Bucky is mine, Captain declared and immediately rushed towards the Winter Soldier, who was very likely to be Bucky Barnes. Let's make sure that Captain is not disturbed, I said as I went to engage the men at Captain's right side. Sure, bub. Mr. Logan agreed as he engaged the men on the left side. Bam! One of the men tried to shoot me as I closed the distance, but I easily dodged the bullets with my dragon sense. However, they didn't get flustered by their failure and took out combat knives to engage me in close combat. The moment I blocked one of the men's attack with my arm, I realized that his strength was much more compared to an ordinary human being. This could only mean that he was a super soldier. Unfortunately, I couldn't play with these discount super soldiers since there was a chance that Hydra would send reinforcements. Crackle. As such, I coated my hands in my iconic red lightning so as to finish these discount super soldiers immediately. My opponents tried to resist with all of their might, but even their enhanced body could do nothing against the lightning coursing through it. Once everyone had fallen unconscious because of my lightning-coated punches, I looked towards Captain to see how his fight with his presumed long-lost friend was going. Buzz. I had barely turned around when my dragon sense sent me a warning, and I instinctively dodged an object coming towards me at a fast speed. Once I had dodged, I noticed that the object was actually Captain's vibranium shield. Looking over, I could see that Captain America was fighting with the Winter Soldier with only his hands. This naturally put him at a disadvantage because of Winter Soldier's metal arm. However, I had full confidence that Captain would win once my eyes fell on his hands. Because he was wearing the artifact I had made personally, the shock gauntlets. Boom! As expected, the moment Captain started feeling that he was at a disadvantage, he released a shock blast right at Winter Soldier's chest, causing him to fly and hit a wall due to the impact. Then, as the Winter Soldier tried to push himself up, Captain released a small shock blast right next to his ear, disorienting him enough that he fell unconscious from Captain's following punch. He is indeed Bucky, Captain said emotionally as he removed Winter Soldier's mask, revealing his old friend's face. Moving my eyes to Mr. Logan's side, he was fighting the last man left who soon fell unconscious because of a jab on his stomach from Mr. Logan's claw. Looking around, the men Mr. Logan had fought all had rather deep wounds from his claws. It seemed to have been a tough battle for him. Otherwise, he would not have fought so brutally. Sorry, they were quite strong. I couldn't control myself. Mr. Logan apologized. They are all super soldiers, albeit discount ones. They won't die so easily. I consoled Mr. Logan. Is it over? Agent Natasha asked as she stepped out of the van. Yes, it is. Captain replied in affirmative with a sigh. Dump them all in the back. We are moving once they are all in. Agent Natasha ordered. All right. I nodded. We had defeated the first of Hydra's hidden men, but we didn't know how deep Hydra's reserves were. The battle of destroying Hydra once and for all was only starting now. Chapter 153. Chapter 151. I don't know anything more. There is nothing else in my mind. So, stop violating it. Pierce shouted in a rough voice. His face had turned a sickly pale and he was sweating continuously even though his body was completely healthy. The reason? His mind had just now been thoroughly searched by the combined might of Professor Xavier, Emma, and Jean. Since he had received some training to resist telepathic attacks, they had to be quite rough in their search throughout his mind, the result being Pierce's current state. How can you not have any information about the location of Hydra's cloning laboratory and the rest of the clones despite having such a high position in it? Professor Xavier asked in an assertive tone. This was part of the reason why Pierce was looking so haggard. Despite being the one who was tasked to infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D. and turn it into a Hydra asset, he had no knowledge about the location of Mr. Logan's clones and where they were made. Much of the information we had obtained from him was regarding Hydra spies in the S.H.I.E.L.D. and the projects of the S.H.I.E.L.D. which was secretly under Hydra's control. This information was incredibly useful for S.H.I.E.L.D., but what we mutants needed to know urgently was the location of Mr. Logan's clones and how they had been made. I swear that I know nothing about the clones. They had shifted the clones as well as the entire laboratory after the Battle of New York. They had purposely hidden that information from me since S.H.I.E.L.D. already knew about the existence of clones at that point. All I know is that it is somewhere in Russia. Pierce revealed everything he knew about the clones. The brutal mind scan he had received at the hands of Professor Xavier, Emma and Jean, had removed any trace of resistance from his mind. His mind had been violated so much that Pierce was ready to reveal everything he knew as long as he didn't have his mind invaded again. Director, this is the information be obtained from Pierce's mind. Professor Xavier handed Director Fury a rather thick report once he came out of the interrogation room with the girls. It seems that you are quite sad at the fact that you couldn't find the location of the Wolverine clones, Professor. Director Fury commented upon seeing Professor's expression. It is not like you don't know what the existence of mutant clones mean for us, Director. If this fact spread out in the public, we mutants would again be put in the same situation that we were in before. All our efforts would be destroyed. Professor Xavier replied. S.H.I.E.L.D. had managed to hide the existence of mutant clones for now, but if this information ever reached the ears of the government, the radicals would start calling for us mutants and our clones to be used as weapons. Everything the X-Men had worked for would be destroyed in just a moment. With the information you have obtained from Pierce, the S.H.I.E.L.D. will soon start raids on Hydra bases. If luck is on our side, we would find the location of the laboratory soon. Director Fury assured us that he would try to find the laboratory as soon as possible. By the way, how is the research on Wolverine's clones going? Have you found any weaknesses? Director Fury inquired. We have found one weakness, Director. But it's useless. We won't be able to use it against the clones. Professor Xavier replied with a sigh. Still, I need to know what it is. Director Fury said, expressing his desire to learn everything about the clones. Let's just say that the clones have a very low shelf life. Professor Xavier answered. Low shelf life? I don't understand. Director Fury was puzzled by Professor's words. What I mean is that they can't live for too long. The ones Magneto had with him were only around 3 years old. And according to our research, they won't live for more than 2 years. Their bodies will simply stop functioning after that time. Professor Xavier explained what he meant. Indeed, this information is of no help to us. It doesn't tomato if the clones can only live for 2 or 3 years when Hydra can create a literal army of them. Director Fury said. Did you find anything else? Any behavioral patterns? Anything similar between the clones? He inquired. Unfortunately, we couldn't find anything more. If there were any mental weaknesses, they had likely been erased by Hydra's ruthless training and the chip implant in their brain. Honestly, the clones can be said to be just barely functioning as human beings. Their mind has been completely broken by Hydra, while their body is slowly shutting down. Professor Xavier regretfully explained the clones' condition. So, all we can do is try to find the location of the clones. Something we have no clue about. Director Fury said with a sigh. Actually, I might have something which can help. I suddenly said, drawing their attention towards me. Then, why didn't you reveal it earlier? Director Fury questioned. It's because it was previously only in development. I only completed it in the recent days and before I could tell you, you already know what happened. I replied. So, what is this thing which can find the location of the clones? Professor Xavier asked curiously. How about I show you directly? It's in my room at the X-Mansion. I answered. We are here now. Show us your mysterious project, Peter. Director Fury ordered once we arrived at my room. Here it is. I said as I showed everyone my hidden project. It was actually a rather ornate-looking compass glowing with magical runes. A magical compass? What can it do? Director Fury asked me with a puzzled look. This is no ordinary artifact. It is a bloodline radar which can find someone if we have his blood within a range of 5 kilometers, and even his direct descendant, although only at a range of a single kilometer. I proudly explained the function of the magical artifact. This is amazing, Peter. This compass would make it much easier for us to find the clone's base. When did even start on it? Professor Xavier asked excitedly. It was soon after Magneto's capture. The existence of Mr. Logan's clones unsettled me a lot. That is why I started working on creating this artifact which would be able to track Mr. Logan's clones easily since they actually have his blood running through their veins. It was no easy task though. Bloodline tracking is a pretty obscure branch of magic, meaning that I had to research for the artifact myself. I couldn't even borrow a similar artifact since Ancient One had forbidden me from borrowing magic artifacts for missions. I could only use artifacts which I had created myself. Still, I have to thank you for your hard work, Peter. This magic fact will be essential in crushing Hydra once and for all. Director Fury said, thanking me for creating the Bloodline radar. I thank you for your kind words, Director. However, it would still be a tough job for us to find the Hydra base, although not as much as before, I said, remembering how much big of an area we had to cover with a tracker of only 5 kilometers of range. At least, we knew that the base was somewhere in Russia. Otherwise, even the Bloodline radar would have been useless. Let's just hope that it doesn't take us entire weeks to find the location. Chapter 154. Chapter 152. Where the hell is that damn Hydra base? I cursed as I created a portal for the umpteenth time and found no reaction from the Bloodline radar upon arrival. I had already been searching all over Russia for the previous 6 hours without any reaction from the Bloodline radar. While the Bloodline radar had a very long range of 5 kilometers, this range was nothing when compared to the whole of Russia. I was only searching through the suspicious areas, but even they were quite big considering Russia's mountainous terrain, which provided a lot of space to hide. Moreover, I had to search the area specifically to ensure that I didn't miss the base just because it was right outside the Bloodline radar's range. This was a very time-consuming task, but someone had to do it. Phew. This area is finally completed. It was one big area though, I said with a sigh as I completed scanning through a fucking mountain range. Time for the next area, I said as I created a portal like I had done hundreds of times before. Ping. Huh. This was my reaction when the Bloodline radar finally responded. After all, I had long become numb to the silence of the radar. I finally found it, I said, my voice dripping with sheer joy as it finally settled within me that I had found the Hydra clone base. Fortunately, I only had to scan a quarter of the designated area before I found the base. Now, let's see where the base actually is. I first casted an invisibility spell on myself so that I won't be seen from far away, and then ran towards the direction the Bloodline radar was pointing to. So, this is where they are, I muttered as I looked at a mountain covered in snow. It was at such a desolate place that it would be difficult to find even animals here. No wonder Hydra established their most important base here. Looking at the Bloodline radar, I could see that it was showing not one but more than 10 responses. Since the base had been found, it was now time for me to perform the next step, scouting. I slowly moved through the snowy land with careful steps as I closed the distance with the mountain, trying to not leave obvious footprints if possible. Once I reached the mountain, I started circling around it, trying to find the entrance to the base. It was at this moment that the Bloodline radar showed an unusual reaction. Its pointer moved, meaning that someone with Mr. Logan's bloodline was nearby. It could only mean that a clone was coming out of the base. Taking advantage of the opportunity before me, I followed the Bloodline radar's direction, and soon found myself in front of an inconspicuous mountain wall. But that was not for long as a part of the wall suddenly slid away, revealing a giant door inside which opened soon after. Out of the door came 2 masked soldiers with a Hydra emblem on their vest along with a beautiful girl around my age in a combat suit. For some reason, the girl seemed to exude an aura of wildness. Now, bitch! Go and hunt some nearby wolves for your so-called training. One of the masked soldiers ordered the girl in a derogatory tone. And don't even think of trying anything funny. Otherwise you know what will happen, the soldier said as he pointed at a metal collar on the girl's neck, which was obviously to keep her in check. But why would Hydra take such measures for a mere girl? I couldn't see anything special in her from a glance. Was she perhaps a mutant? However, even if she was, it didn't make sense for Hydra to just leave her alone to train in the wilderness. Clor. Clink. To my surprise, the girl growled at the soldiers and unsheathed metal claws from her wrists just like Mr. Logan. Was she the one who the Bloodline radar was pointing at? So far, I was thinking that it was the other masked soldier who was a Wolverine clone. After all, a Wolverine clone could only be a male since Mr. Logan was also a male. However, this girl here had Mr. Logan's claws. Just what was going on here? Wait a second. Now that I look closely, she looked quite similar to Mr. Logan. Could it be that Hydra had created a natural child of Mr. Logan while he was in their captivity? Now that I think about it, it was something obvious for Hydra to do when they had Mr. Logan in their captivity. After all, there was no way for them to be sure that they would be able to actually create clones. In such a case, they would obviously create Mr. Logan's natural child, both for research and to use it as a brainwashed soldier. Have you grown some guts again, bitch? The masked soldier shouted furiously towards the mutant girl and then smashed his rifles but towards her head. However, to my surprise, the girl didn't resist and willingly let the soldier hit her for some reason. Good. The masked soldier laughed at the girl as she fell to the ground because of his attack. Never try to resist, bitch. Otherwise you know what will happen to your dear mom and dad. The soldier said derogatively as he made a sign of his finger moving through his neck, making a very obvious sign. It was obvious that the so-called mom and dad of this girl were not her original parents but people Hydra had forced to raise the girl so as to make her emotionally attached to them. Fine, the girl said in a furious tone as she stood up and started moving towards the forest. As the girl started to move, I stealthily took out my camera and captured a few pictures of her. Now, I had two options before me. First, I could enter the base stealthily alongside the soldiers when returned to the base. This would give me a chance to properly scout the base and find where were the hostage scientists who were forced by Hydra to work for them. But this was also a risky option. If I was somehow discovered, Hydra would likely kill the hostage scientists so as to make sure that their secrets were not released. The other option was for me to return to report the location of the base. I could then return with a team to capture the base in an entire scoop. But this plan was also risky as we won't know the layout of the base during the assault, making it difficult for us to extract the hostages. Make sure to not kill all the wolves. You still have to go through this training tomorrow. The masked soldier shouted at the girl to give her a reminder. The moment I heard his words, I knew what I had to do. It was obviously the second option. I would return with a team tomorrow. Then, I would enter the base along with the soldiers and find where the hostage scientists were. Once they were secure, we would attack the base to capture it. Tomorrow was the day this base will be finished, and with it will start the end of Hydra. As I looked at the back of the girl for a last time, I vowed to save her. She was just an innocent girl who was unfortunately born under the machinations of Hydra. Chapter 155. Chapter 153. I found the base. I shouted as I stepped inside the secret shield facility where Director Fury was waiting along with Professor Xavier, Mr. Logan and Ms. Aurora for today's report. Really? That was much faster than I had expected. I had honestly thought that it would take days before we would find the base. Director Fury said, surprised that I found the base this early. However, I also found a big problem. I said, revealing that I found something more than just the base. Well, it was obvious from the start that we would find some shocking facts in this Hydra base. After all, we have no idea what Hydra has cooked over the decades. Anyways, what is this big problem you are talking about, Peter? Director Fury asked. A very unique problem, Director Fury. I replied as I showed everyone the picture of the mutant girl who was most likely Mr. Logan's biological daughter. Is this girl supposed to be someone important? Professor Xavier asked as he noticed the Hydra soldiers in the background. Why don't you decide for yourself? I said as I showed them another picture which had the mutant girl with her claws out. Those claws. Is she related to me? Mr. Logan immediately asked as he saw the claws on the girl's wrists. Wait a second. Those facial features. Is she Logan's biological daughter? Ms. Aurora guessed as she focused her eyes on the girl's face. Most likely. After all, she is a girl so she can't be a clone. And it would be too far-fetched to assume that Hydra somehow managed to create artificial mutants with Mr. Logan's power. I replied. But I don't see how it is a big problem. Even if she is Wolverine's biological daughter, at this moment she is just a brainwashed Hydra soldier. We can decide what to do with her once we have captured the base. Director Fury said upon finding the girl's identity. That is the problem. She is not a brainwashed at all. I revealed the true problem. How can this be possible? There is no way Hydra won't brainwash her. Did you find any definite proof that she wasn't brainwashed? Director Fury asked with an expression of sheer shock on his face. The others also looked shocked by this news. As you can see in the picture, she has an aura of wildness to her which is quite different from the robotic movements of the brainwashed soldiers. Moreover, she had almost attacked one of the soldiers with her claws when he had thrown derogatory remarks at her. In fact, that was how I learnt that she had the same powers as Mr. Logan. Also, the soldiers had threatened to hurt her mom and dad, likely hostages if she misbehaved. This had made her sheathe her claws and begrudgingly listen to them. It seems that Hydra has tried a different way to control this girl, the way of emotional attachment. But why? Do they seek potential in this girl? Director Fury mused upon hearing my explanation. Peter, do you think that we can convince this girl to help us? Perhaps we can offer to free her mom and dad. If we can obtain her support, it would make it much easier for us to infiltrate the base and extract the hostage scientists. Director Fury asked for my opinion. It shouldn't be too hard. The girl clearly has a negative opinion of Hydra from what I have seen. We would also have a clear window to talk with her tomorrow when C comes out for wilderness training on her own. That would be the perfect time for us to convince her to help us, especially since the gate would also be open at that time. If it doesn't work, we can just make her unconscious. We would just have to infiltrate the base on our own to locate the hostages, which Kitty should be able to do easily. The whole mission would just be a little more riskier. Very well then. We would do as per you say, Peter. Director Fury said, accepting my plan to first try to convince the girl before infiltrating the base. Professor Xavier, ready the X-Men. For we will be attacking Hydra's most important base tomorrow. Do you really think that she will listen to us, Peter? She seems more likely to slash at us instead of listening to us. Kurt said as all of us looked at Mr. Logan's supposed daughter slaughtering a pack of wolves. We were currently on a mountain near the base with our eyes on the mutant girl who we had to convince to help us. On the team were Mr. Logan, Ms. Aurora, Scott and myself as the heavy hitters. Kurt and Kitty were here to help us with infiltration and extraction. Jean would be our psychic for the mission. We can only hope so, I said as I casted an invisibility spell on myself and then slowly approached the mutant girl. Once I was closer, I openly casted an isolation barrier covering both of us. As expected, the girl became wary as she saw the magic runes forming the isolation barrier around herself in front of her eyes. Who is there? She shouted with a growl, even waving her claws around. No need to be hostile. I am not your enemy, I said to her as I cancelled my invisibility spell and materialized before her. You are Albion, the girl shouted, clearly recognizing me. Oh, it seems that Hydra has told you about me, I said curiously. Of course, those bastards did. They brief me every day about you and what kind of powers you have and then train me accordingly so that I can withstand a fight against you. And for what? A fucking chance that I could somehow assassinate you, the girl replied, easily revealing Hydra's secrets as if they meant nothing to her. So, what do you think of these Hydra bastards? I asked the girl with her smile after hearing her words, realizing that it would not be had to convince her. That they should just go to hell. The girl replied viciously. Good. I like your personality, girl. What's your name? I asked with a laugh, already liking her. Those Hydra bastards named me X23. But mom and dad always call me Laura. The girl, Laura answered. To think that these Hydra bastards only gave her a code name, not even treating her like a human being. But what could one expect from these Nazis? What if I told you Lower and that I can extract you as well as your mom and dad from this base? I asked, finally revealing my agenda. How can I trust you? What if just you discard me after using me? Laura asked, clearly distrustful of me, which was something obvious for her to do, especially since she had been raised under Hydra. I was about to answer when I saw Mr. Logan rushing towards the barrier, clearly wanting to meet Laura. In a few moments, he crossed the barrier and consequently, Laura's eyes fell upon him. Who are you now? Laura asked in a hostile tone, though it was less hostile compared to before. I am your biological father. Mr. Logan answered truthfully as he unsheathed his claws as a proof. It doesn't matter to me. Hydra has already told me about you. However, only mom and dad are my parents, Laura declared resolutely. I know. I just wanted to tell you to give us a chance. If you help us, we can not only save your parents but also everyone innocent inside, Mr. Logan replied, trying to convince Laura to help us. Fine. I will help you. But if you betray me, I will gut you no matter how strong you are, Laura said threateningly as she pointed her claws at us. Chapter 156. Chapter 154. You really managed to convince her, Peter. I had honestly thought that it was a lost cause. Kurt whispered to me once we all gathered after Laura was convinced. You saying something, Blue Boy? Laura asked in a rough tone as she heard Kurt's whisper. No, nothing, Kurt answered, rather fearful of Laura's wild personality. Anyways, tell me what I have to do. I can't stay here for long as I have to report back, Laura said, asking what was our plan. You just have to lead the way. I will follow behind you in my invisible form. Once you take me to where your mom and dad along with the rest of the hostages are, I will be able to extract them from the base. I revealed our plan. Then, what are we waiting for? Follow me, Laura said anxiously as she slung a wolf's corpse on her back, clearly wanting to free her mom and dad as soon as possible. Calm down, girl. No need to hurry so much, Mr. Logan said, stopping Laura. First, tell us what is the base's strength. Are there any other mutants inside aside from the clones? Any weapons we need to be aware of? Mr. Logan asked. Since Laura was his blood, he was dealing very carefully with her even though he had never met her before this day. This behavior was completely unlike his actual personality. I don't know anything about weapons, but aside from the clones, there are Pietro and Wanda who are mutants. Pietro has super speed and Wanda has telekinesis, Laura answered. And you didn't deem this information important enough for us to know, Scott said sarcastically. I was going to tell this information on the way, Laura said with a blush, defending herself. Pietro and Wanda, to think that Magneto's children were here, Ms. Ororo said after learning who these two mutants were, shocking all of us. Magneto's children. Why did you hide such an important fact from all of us? Jean asked, hurt that the teachers had hidden the fact that Magneto had children who were even mutants. It was not our intention to hide this information. It just never came up. Ms. Ororo defended herself. According to Mystique, the relation between Magneto and his children has never been good. As such, Six var searching for them to see if there was a chance that we could get them to join the X-Men. To think that they joined the Hydra, she said with a sigh. Do you think that you would handle them if you ever needed to engage them, Peter? Even though you are quite strong, Pietro's super speed is something we have never seen before. Kitty asked worriedly since I had to infiltrate the base. Don't worry, Kitty. No matter how fast Pietro is, he can't be faster than my lightning. Besides, my reflexes are more than strong enough to react to his super speed, I assured Kitty. As I talked about Pietro's super speed, my mind inevitably went to his sister, Wanda. Where had I heard this name before? Then, the answer suddenly crossed my mind like lightning. My name is Magnus Parker, the son of Peter Parker and Wanda Maximoff. Does this Wanda uses a red energy for her telekinesis? I hurriedly asked as soon as I remembered who were Magnus' parents. How did you know? Laura asked with an expression of surprise, thus confirming my words. Fuck. I cursed as I confirmed Wanda's identity. Is something wrong with this Wanda, Peter? Mr. Logan asked worried upon seeing my expression. Remember Magnus Parker. He inherited chaos magic from his mother, Wanda Maximoff. I explained. Is she really the same Wanda? Ms. Ororo asked with a grave expression, realizing how serious Wanda's identity was. I can't say for sure since Magneto didn't exist in that world. What I know for sure is that chaos magic manifests as a red-colored energy which this Wanda uses. I answered. So, what to do with this Wanda? Ms. Ororo asked me since I was the one who knew the danger of chaos magic the best. We should capture the base first. Once the mission is over, I will bring Wanda to Ancient One and she will decide what to do with her. I answered after some thought. Are you coming or not? It's getting late. The soldiers could get skeptical. Laura said to me since our discussion had wasted quite some time. However, she didn't seem to be interested in our discussion regarding Wanda even the slightest bit, perhaps because she was anxious to free her mom and dad. Alright, guys. I am going, I said to everyone as I casted an invisibility spell on myself. Good luck, Peter. Hope everything goes as planned, Ms. Ororo said, bidding me goodbye. We are almost there, Laura whispered to me with her smile, which she immediately hid so that no one in the base felt that anything was afoot. However, I would say that her smile was rather unnerving since the blood from the wolf's corpse was still on her clothes, and some drops were even left on her face. This bloody look added to her wild personality made her look so ferocious that most of the soldiers in the base naturally stayed away from her, which was only beneficial to us. Still, even if she tried to hide her happiness, I could feel it all too easily. It must be because she was finally going to be free from this prison, along with her adopted parents. My infiltration was going smoothly till now, and we were already near the laboratory area. Now, all I had to do was to meet Laura's mom and dad, and confirm if they were actually hostages or rather Hydra's agents. If they were in fact Hydra agents, I would unfortunately have to betray Laura and make all of them unconscious since I couldn't afford any risks. I still had no idea how many hostage scientists there were in the base, and I had to find them as soon as possible. Because the attack on the base could only begin after I sent all of the hostages away through a portal. Since it was an important mission, I had a little leeway in the public use of magic. We were almost at the lab when my dragon sense suddenly rang. The warning was so strong and sudden that all I could do was follow my reflexes and dodge to my right before a silhouette passed through where I was. Well, if it isn't little Laura. A voice sounded as a silver-haired young man, a few years older than me, suddenly appeared before us. No, not appeared, but rather slowed down. The earlier warning was because this man had almost hit me because he couldn't see me in my invisible state. Looking at his speed, he must be Pietro, Magneto's son. What do you want, Pietro? Laura asked with a growl, clearly not wanting to interact with him when she was so close to freedom. Just wanted to check on you since I saw you. Perhaps you should take a bath, Pietro said as he rubbed his nose, disgusted by the blood on Laura. See ya later, Pietro said as he left with his super speed. Can you defeat him? Laura whispered to me after a minute. No problem, I replied confidently. Even with the element of surprise on Pietro's side, I was able to react with the help of my dragon sense. In an actual fight, there is no way Pietro was going to withstand my red lightning. Then, follow me, Laura said as she took me to the lab. As we entered the lab where Laura's parents were, I was surprised to see that the monitor in the lab was actually showing the footage of the news of Parcon, with Dr. Connor's picture along with my own. Were they ordered to research on Parcon? Laura, how many times I have told you to try not to make such a huge mess. Laura's mom scolded her as she turned around and saw Laura's condition. Well, she won't be our Laura if she actually cleaned herself properly. Laura's dad said with a laugh as he looked at Laura's condition. Mom, Dad, it can't be. The moment Laura's mom and dad turned around, my mind went into shock. Any doubts about them disappeared from my mind. Because standing in front of me were none other than Richard and Mary Parker. My own parents who I had thought to be long dead. Chapter 157. Chapter 155. I would never forget the day my parents left me at Uncle Ben's home. Because that was the last time I saw them. I still remember how much I had cried and begged so that they would take me along with them. But they had simply waved me goodbye with a sad smile as I cried in the arms of Aunt May. And then, the news of plane crash had reached us. At that time, I had honestly felt like my entire world had collapsed. I didn't know what to do and why. But Aunt May and Uncle Ben never left my side. In a selfish world, they decided to keep me and raise me as if I was their own child. As time went by, my memories of them became dull and I started to basically recognize Aunt May and Uncle Ben more as my parents. But I still remembered how they looked like all too clearly. I had seen too many pictures of them to not remember. That's why I was sure that they were my parents. The parents who were actually alive all along and in Hydra's captivity. This sudden realization was a little too much for me, who had never expected to find such a situation. You are watching Peter's videos again, Mom. You must really love him. Unaware of my inner turmoil, Laura asked my mother with a pout, clearly aware of my existence as their son. Of course, we do, sweetie. But we don't love you any less. My mother answered with a smile. Honestly, it felt awkward to address someone as mother after so many years. Do you think that I would ever meet him? Laura asked seriously since she now had a chance to escape this facility. I hope that you would, sweetie. Mother answered with a bitter smile since she knew their situation all too well. Can you help me wash, Mom? I think that my clothes are a little too soaked in blood. Laura asked my mother, playing innocent all too well. Since the security cameras were all over the lab, I needed a place where I could meet my mother without allowing anyone. And unfortunately, there was only one place readily available where there were no security cameras, the bathroom. How many times have I told you to maintain yourself, Laura? But you never listen. Mother chided Laura as she took her to the bathroom with me, following right after. As soon as she entered the bathroom with Laura, Mother tried to shut the door but Laura suddenly stopped her, allowing me to finally enter the bathroom. Huh? What's the matter, Laura? Mother asked Laura, surprised by her weird action. Mom, we can finally go free. Laura exclaimed excitedly as soon as she shut the door, unable to contain her excitement. What are you saying, Laura? Mother said in a confused tone, surprised by Laura's words. Yet, I could see that she was slowly realizing what was the entire matter. Let me explain, Mississippi, I said as I finally materialized before her. Please don't scream, I asked politely since she was extremely surprised by my sudden appearance. Hey Albion. You are Albion, right? Mother said as she realized who I was. Indeed, I am Albion. However, I am surprised that you have enough information about the outside world to know about me. I asked curiously. It is only because Hydra handmade us research on whatever data they had regarding you to see if we could find any of your weaknesses. How did you appear so suddenly though? Mother asked, curious about my sudden appearance. I was just invisible. Laura led me here to you. I answered. Is that so? But why did you lead him here so easily, Laura? Mother asked Laura with a questioning look. Because that was the only way remaining for us to get out of here. You know how much we have suffered under these Hydra bastards. How much you have fought so that you could raise me. Laura said, her eyes moist. You know that they are starting the Weapon X program again to turn me into their brainwashed soldier. And to do that, they would first eliminate you and Father. I would rather take a risk and trust a stranger than allow you to die. Oh, Laura. Mother said emotionally as she hugged Laura to console her. I believe that S.H.I.E.L.D. already knows about this location since you are here. Mother asked once she finished consoling Laura. Indeed. The other mutants are right outside the base while S.H.I.E.L.D. forces are on standby and would arrive soon after we start raiding the base. I am here in advance to rescue all of the hostages. I explained our plan. But would you alone be able to extract all of us hostages? Mother questioned. We have our means. I just need to know where are all the hostages and gather them all. Then, you will know how I will extract all of you. I replied. Very well, I will trust you. Mother said with a sigh, agreeing to help me. All of the hostage scientists, including me and my husband, would gather for lunch in the cafeteria in an hour. That is when you can begin your plan. Didn't think that these inhuman bastards would actually allow all of you to meet each other? I commented, knowing how heartless Hydra was. It was only because these bastards knew that our productivity would decline if we didn't have any proper human interaction. That is the only reason we can meet with each other. Of course, they still guard us zealously. Mother answered with a snort. All right. I will start the extraction once all the hostages are gathered. Signal me by waving your hand behind your back once everyone is gathered. I revealed my plan. Okay. I will also signal Richard that something is about to happen if it is possible. Mother replied, a smile slowly forming on her face now that freedom was right before her eyes. Phew. Finally, I can take a breath of air. Their demands are increasing day by day. An old scientist grumbled as he arrived at an already crowded cafeteria. He was likely the last hostage. As expected, Mother waved her hand behind her back to signal me once the old scientist arrived. She was standing together with Father and Laura, likely having signaled Father already that something was about to happen today. Not wasting any time, I immediately deactivated my invisibility spell and shot lightning bolts first at the cameras and then at the guards. Ah! Several hostage scientists shouted at the sudden turn of events. A frightened and restless atmosphere was forming among them, which could soon turn into a stampede if it was not handled. Silence! I shouted, trying to sound as menacing as possible so as to stop them from doing anything which could harm the plan. Your freedom is finally here. I announced as I created a portal straight to the X-Men's location. So, that was your plan, Albion? Mother said as she looked at the portal while others were stupefied by it. How many of the hostages are here, bub? Mr. Logan asked as he came out of the portal with almost all of the team. Ms. Aurora and Jean remained behind so as to guard the hostages who would soon fill their location. Ms. Aurora alone would be enough to protect the hostages, while Jean would be able to calm the crowd. Almost all of them. There may be a few others, but Kitty should be enough to search for them. I replied as I looked at Kitty. It was Kitty's job to look for any remaining hostages in the base. Between her phasing ability and an invisibility spell, Kitty would be like a ghost, making her perfect to search through the base. Why are you not moving, Laura? Mother asked Laura as she and Father started running towards the portal, only to stop since Laura was not following. I want to fight these bastards. Today, I will get my revenge for every torture they put me as well as Mom and Dad through, Laura declared as she unsheathed her claws. Now is not the time for that, girl. You will get your chance against Hydra later. At this moment, you will only be a hindrance to us since you will not be able to work with us as a team, Mr. Logan said, trying to convince her why it was a bad idea for her to fight now. Fine, Laura said grudgingly as she accepted Mr. Logan's advice and charged through the portal. Take care, Albion, Mother said to me as she entered the portal. You don't need to worry, I replied with a smile even though she couldn't see it beneath my mask. Now, it's time to crush the base along with these inhuman bastards, I said as I punched my hand, causing red sparks to emit from them. Usually, I never entered a fight with an intention of destruction. However, at this moment, I was raring to go against these Hydra bastards who had kept my parents from me for so many years. Chapter 158. Chapter 156. Stop them. Don't let them escape. Hydra soldiers shouted as they entered the cafeteria with guns in their hands, ready to kill the hostages if they couldn't prevent them from escaping. In your dreams. I said as I released a wave of lightning at them, careful to limit the power of the lightning so they are not burnt alive by it. My control over lightning was a little erratic at this moment because of the rage I was feeling at the Hydra for keeping my parents hostage for so many years. Calm down. Don't rush. Kurt shouted as he teleported yet another overeager hostage who had almost run into another hostage, preventing the crowd from turning into a stampede. Please move to the portal slowly. There is no need to rush. The soldiers can't hurt you as long as we are here. I shouted to the crowd of hostages to assure them that they were not in danger. It was at this moment that I barely saw a blur enter the cafeteria. Before I could do anything, it slammed into Mr. Logan, causing him to crash into a nearby wall. What the hell was that? Mr. Logan cursed as he stood up, a little disoriented but unharmed otherwise. It was me, a silver-haired man declared as he seemed to suddenly materialize from thin air, even though I knew that he had merely stopped. Pietro, the son of Magneto. You are finally here, I said to Pietro, completely unfazed by his seemingly sudden materialization. So, you already know of me. But you should not call me Pietro. After all, we are not that close. You can call me Quicksilver, Pietro said, revealing his code name proudly. It doesn't matter to me what you call yourself, kiddo. What matters to me is whether you stand in our way or not, Mr. Logan said as he pointed his claws at Pietro. Well, I always wanted to fight the famed Albion who defeated and captured my near-invincible father, Pietro replied with a smirk. Let's see if you can match my speed. With these words, Pietro turned into a blur, this time moving towards me. His speed was indeed great, but what Pietro didn't know was that I could track his location with my dragon sense and actually react to it even if I couldn't actually match speed without transforming into my draconic form. As Pietro rushed towards me with full confidence in his super speed, I merely released a discharge of red lightning from my body once he got close to me. Pietro actually managed to sense the sudden lightning discharge and tried to dodge at the last moment, but even he was not fast enough to dodge the lightning. In fact, the sudden movement actually made him lose his balance as he was struck by my lightning. This led to him flying away as he was hit by the lightning discharge and hit a wall. What the hell was that? Pietro muttered as he slumped against the wall, unable to believe that he had been defeated so suddenly. How many times I have told you that you shouldn't rush. What happened to you, Pietro? A reddish-brown-haired girl shouted as reached the scene and looked at Pietro's condition. Are you all right? She immediately rushed towards Pietro and checked his condition. Looks like she was Wanda, Pietro's sister, even though they didn't look much alike. After all, Pietro had silver hair and her hair was reddish-brown. Now that I think about it, Magneto had brown hair, meaning that they didn't even share his hair color. However, I could see similarities between her and the son of my alternate self, Magnus Parker. From hair color to facial features, Magnus had inherited a lot from his mother. Just a little dizzy, Wanda, Pietro replied in a rather slurred tone. Take some rest, Pietro. I will handle everything here, Wanda said in a tone which promised pain for us as she stood up, a red aura slowly forming around her. All of you will pay, Wanda said furiously as her body was shrouded in the red aura of chaos magic, turning her hair and eyes red. I don't think so. Silence. As Mr. Logan tried to speak, Wanda pointed her hand towards him, and he was suddenly wrapped in the red aura which slammed him into a wall. This girl sure is a little difficult to deal with, Mr. Logan muttered as he stood up, the slam clearly not affecting him much. Let me take care of everything, Wolverine. I know how to deal with her, I said, asking Mr. Logan to leave her to me. Really? You think that you can defeat me easily, Albion? Then, show me how you will do it, Wanda said as she pointed her hand covered in chaos magic towards me. A red aura suddenly shrouded my body, yet I felt nothing. Just as Spider Supreme had told me, I was immune to chaos magic. However, I could see that Wanda's chaos magic was too immature. She could only use it for telekinesis and perhaps a little more. It was much different from Magnus' usage of chaos magic, who could manipulate matter and magic as if they were mere toys. Perhaps that was the reason Ancient One had not been able to track chaos magic even after scanning the entire Earth. Wanda's chaos magic was simply too immature to be tracked. How? Why does my power not work on you? Wanda said in a shocked tone upon seeing that her power was not working on me. You can say that I am just built different, I replied as I closed the difference between us in but a second. Since Wanda was a girl and her chaos magic was quite volatile, I just couldn't punch her and roughen her up. So, I just slapped her on the face a little hard. Wham! It seems that the slap was already enough since the red aura surrounding Wanda disappeared, and she seemed a little disoriented from the slap. Still, I think that the slap was a little too much since her cheek had turned quite red, Did you just slap my sister? Pietro shouted as he slowly stood up, his body still numb from the shock. Well, I couldn't punch her, I replied with a shrug. By the way, why did you join Hydra? Did you not know how vile they are? They would create mutant clones only to put them through inexplicable horror, and then brainwash them so that they could be used as mere tools. Have you not seen how they treated Laura? How can you still work for them after learning all these things? I asked the siblings in a furious tone because it angered me that they would willingly work for such a vile organization. Even Eric hated Hydra and only reluctantly worked with them. Did you not know that it was because of Hydra that he became his current self? Your father would surely be disappointed in you if he ever learned what you did. Shut up. We only joined Hydra because there was no other place for us. The Brotherhood disbanded after father was captured. Being his children, you know how we would be treated anywhere. That was why we had to join Hydra. However, we didn't know that Hydra was much viler than we had ever thought it to be. Trust me, we were going to leave Hydra soon. We were only looking for an opportunity. Pietro revealed their situation, trying to defend himself and his sister. At this moment, it was clear to them that they had no chance of victory against us. That was why he was explaining their past. If you only joined Hydra because you had no other choice, then surrender. You have no criminal record. We will make so that you, at the very least, don't have to go to the jail, I said, offering them a chance to start their life anew. Wanda, I think we should take this offer, Pietro said to his sister, who looked quite angry at this moment because of my slap. Fine, Wanda said with gritted teeth, accepting the offer despite her anger. Albion. The extraction of hostages is finished, Kurt notified as he sent the last of the hostages through the portal. Since extraction is finished, it's time for us to start our onslaught, I said as I looked at the Wolverine clones entering the cafeteria, the only ones in the base who could still pose a challenge to us. Now, you are talking my language, bub, Mr. Logan replied with a gun, which seemed rather unsettling given that he was facing the clones who had the same face as him. Then, let's finish our job, I said as I rushed ahead, planning to capture the base as possible so that I could return to meet my parents quickly. Chapter 159. Chapter 157. Why the hell is my sister so much more restrained? How can she be more of a threat compared to my super speed? Pietro complained to me as he rankled his handcuffs in anger. The battle at the base had fortunately gone well after Pietro and Wanda's surrender. Apart from the mutant siblings, the base only had around a dozen Wolverine clones, which were nothing against the X-Men's combined might. And with no hostages remaining at the base, nobody could stop our onslaught. The entire base had fallen within an hour. This led us to our current situation. We were currently at a SHIELD facility in France where Pietro and Wanda had been temporarily imprisoned before we could decide what to do with them. The reason for Pietro's rage was that his sister Wanda's bindings were much more stronger compared to his own for seemingly no reason. Pietro's feet had been chained together and his hands were in handcuffs. On the other hand, not only the chains on Wanda's feet and the handcuffs on her hands were stronger, but she also had a shock collar on her neck. This much restriction was necessary because we knew just how much of a threat Wanda's chaos magic was even if she herself didn't know it. Are you going to even say anything? Pietro said furiously as he didn't receive any response from me. Please wait a few moments. Everything will be clear soon enough, I replied, asking Pietro to be patient since I was the only one in the room at this moment and I couldn't say anything before Director Fury arrived. Knock. Knock. After my words ended, a knock came on the door. I opened the door to see that it was Director Fury who had knocked. Professor Xavier, Mr. Logan and Ms. Aurora were also with him. Well done, Albion. Because of your excellent performance, all the hostages were extracted without a single loss. You even managed to make the mutant siblings surrender. Director Fury praised me as soon as he entered the room. Thank you for your kind words, Director, I said, humbly receiving his praise. May I know where are the hostages right now? I asked since I planned to meet my mother and father immediately after my work here was done. The hostages have been sent to the SHIELD embassy in US. This also includes the girl with Wolverine's power, Laura. Hydra's power is stronger here in Europe, so we don't want to take any chances. Director Fury answered my question without withholding a single fact. I know why you are asking their location, Albion. Even I had never thought that you would find your parents there under Hydra's captivity. Rest assured, you can go to meet them once we have decided Pietro and Wanda's fate. I will also try to ensure that they can be released as possible, even though it seems difficult considering that they are adopted parents of Laura. However, I will make sure that they are treated as best as they can be considering their situation. Hearing Director Fury's words, I couldn't help but turn emotional. He is your new how to take care of his men. Due to being scientists who worked under Hydra, S.H.I.E.L.D. would have to obtain every single bit of research my parents had performed along with all the information they had on Hydra. And that is not considering that Laura considered them her parents. Adding that to the probation S.H.I.E.L.D. would put them under to check if they hadn't turned into Hydra spies. The whole process could easily take months or even a year. Yet, Director Fury was willing to risk releasing my parents early just because they were my parents who had thought to be long dead. If your discussion is over, can you please tell what would happen to us now? I am getting bored out of my mind here. Pietro asked impatiently, interrupting our conversation. Pietro, Wanda shouted, looking at him with a reproaching look. Please forgive my brother. He has always been an impatient man, Wanda said, apologizing on Pietro's behalf. She clearly didn't want to harm their prospects because of a bad first impression. It doesn't matter. There is no need for an apology. Director Fury replied indifferently. Since you are finally talking, can you please explain why Wanda has been so heavily restrained? It just doesn't make sense. Pietro repeated the question he had asked me. To answer your question, I must first ask what can you do with your mutant ability, Wanda? Director Fury asked Wanda seriously. I can use telekinesis with the red energy that is my mutant ability. Also, I can create energy blasts with it. Why are you asking though? Wanda asked skeptically. Is this really all you can do? Answer truthfully. Wanda. It is a matter of life and death for you. I am not joking. Director Fury said seriously, looking Wanda straight in the eyes. Fine. My energy blasts can confuse enemies if they hit them. Also, I can scramble someone's mind if I can get my hands on their head, making them experience hallucinations. Wanda answered truthfully this time. Now, tell me why you are treating my powers so seriously? It is like you are treating me like a time bomb, Wanda demanded. In a way, calling you a time bomb won't be wrong, Director Fury replied, shocking both of the siblings. What? How can it be? Pietro shouted as he suddenly started resisting against his restraints. Buzz. Ah! As Pietro attempted to escape his restraints, the hidden shock enchantment on them activated, shocking him just enough to paralyze his body. There is no need to resist, Pietro. We are not going to kill your sister, Professor Xavier said, explaining to Pietro that we were not going to take any extreme measures. Will someone tell me what the hell is wrong with my mutant ability? Wanda shouted, too confused by our words. I believe that it would be better for you to listen about your power's uniqueness from an expert. Albion, when is Ancient One arriving? Director Fury asked since he had asked me to call Ancient One. After all, Wanda's situation was something only she could handle. I have already called her. She should be arriving any time now. I replied. Swirl. As if on cue, a portal opened in the room and Ancient One stepped out of it. Are you the mutant who has the portal creation ability? But Hydra and the Brotherhood had no prior knowledge about you, which should be impossible given your unique ability, Pietro said as he looked at Ancient One, assuming the portal to be her mutant ability. I am not mutant, young Pietro. Neither is this portal a mutant ability. Ancient One replied with a smile, clearly amused by Pietro's wrong assumption. Then, how did this portal was created? Pietro asked with confusion. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Ancient One, the leader of the sorcerers of Kamar Taj. Chapter 160. Chapter 158. So, you mean to say that you are the leader of the sorcerers of Kamar Taj, a group of actual magicians who have protected this world from interdimensional threats since ancient times? Pietro said, summarizing everything Ancient One told them about herself and the sorcerers of Kamar Taj. Indeed. Ancient One nodded. Honestly, all of this sounds a little too ridiculous. But I can only believe it after seeing the proof right before my eyes. Pietro replied, not able to refute the existence of magic after seeing the various magic spells Ancient One had shown them as a proof. Actually, the existence of mutants is what is ridiculous to us sorcerers. Ancient One replied with a chuckle. We sorcerers study mystic arts for years before we are proficient in them, but you mutants are simply born with powers which can easily surpass all of our hard work. Moreover, some of you can perform feats which are impossible for us. For example, your super speed is something we would never be able to completely replicate. I believe that we are moving away from the topic. Ancient One, can you please tell me what is wrong with my powers? Wanda asked pleadingly, anxious to know why Director Fury called her a time bomb. Can you first show me your mutant ability, Wanda? You don't need to do anything with it. Just channeling it would be enough. Ancient One asked Wanda. As you wish. Wanda hurriedly channeled her chaos magic through her hand, causing the all-too-familiar red glow to appear on it. As expected, it is indeed chaos magic. Ancient One confirmed as she analyzed Wanda's mutant ability through an observation spell. What do you mean? Is my mutant ability related to some sort of magic? Wanda asked, confused by Ancient One's words. Not just any sort of magic, dear Wanda. Chaos magic is something which has the potential to destroy the entire Earth. Ancient One answered, shocking the siblings. But how can that be possible? I have never felt that my powers are very strong. After all, Pietro's speed has always been more than enough to defeat me. Wanda said, having difficulty believing Ancient One's words. That is because you are only scratching the surface of chaos magic. Tell me how you use your mutant ability. Ancient One asked Wanda. I just think about what I want to do and my power does the rest. What I can do with my power comes almost instinctively to me. Wanda replied. It means that you are starting to get grasp on your power's true potential. Fortunately, we were not too late. Otherwise, a big incident could have happened, especially since you were with Hydra. Ancient One said with a sigh of relief, glad that we could find Wanda before her chaos magic went out of control. I just can't understand why you say that my mutant ability, or as you say, chaos magic has such potential. Wanda asked. As of now, you can manipulate force and somewhat interfere with others' minds. But that is just the start. Eventually, you will be able to manipulate matter and energy, and after that comes the true power of chaos magic, the manipulation of reality. Ancient One revealed the true potential of chaos magical, leaving both of the siblings stunned. Are you kidding me? Reality manipulation. It is something I can't even dream of. Wanda said, completely flabbergasted by Ancient One's words. But that is the truth, whether you believe it or not. Ancient One replied seriously. Does that mean that you are simply scared of my true potential? That is why you are treating me like a time bomb. Wanda said with a darkened expression, completely misjudging us. That is not that truth. Our reason for concern is not the chaos magic but the being who is its source. Ancient One replied, clearly Wanda's confusion. Source. Are you saying that chaos magic is not something that belongs to me? Wanda asked, stunned by her words. Chaos magic is indeed your power. But its source is an interdimensional being named Thon, who is so powerful that he can only be described as a god. Being the source of chaos magic, it is too easy for him to slowly manipulate your mind and then make your chaos magic go haywire. In the most extreme case, he may even be able to use the chaos magic in your body to open a door to our Earth, enabling him to descend here and make our planet his domain. I can't believe it. Wanda said while stuttering, completely overwhelmed by the revelation. She was completely silent for the following few minutes, but then started speaking with moist eyes. My powers manifested much later than Pietro. For this sole reason, Father never treated me like his daughter. Now, you are telling me that my powers which I wanted so much can destroy the Earth along with everything I hold dear. I wish it was not true, Wanda. But fate can often be far more cruel than we ever think it to be. Ancient One said softly, feeling sorry for Wanda. Are you going to kill me? Wanda suddenly asked out of nowhere. Absolutely not. I immediately replied. Seriously, this girl presumed a little too much. But you said that I am a time bomb. What if your words actually come true and Thon descends using me? Wanda asked tearfully. You don't need to worry, Wanda dear. Your chaos magic is at a very early stage. With the help of the sorcerers of Kamar Taj, we can try to slowly isolate your connection with Thon. And the hypothesis I told you just now is an extreme example which can only happen when Thon has complete control over your mind. Ancient One said, consoling Wanda that there was a way to deal with her situation. Really? Wanda said, hope appearing in her eyes. Yes. But you have to come with me to Kamar Taj. Only there can I teach you how to use chaos magic properly without being influenced by Thon. Ancient One replied. But Wanda looked hesitantly at Pietro, clearly not wanting to separate from her brother. You should go, Wanda. I will manage here somehow. Pietro said with a sad smile, not wanting his sister to risk her future because of him. Speaking of you, Pietro, I have a nice offer for you. Director Fury suddenly addressed Pietro. Me? Pietro exclaimed, surprised by Director's words. Despite your involvement in the Brotherhood and Hydra, I am willing to give you a chance since you don't have a prior criminal record. I am willing to offer you a place in S.H.I.E.L.D. We have recently obtained some information with very severe implications. As such, we need as many superhumans as possible. Who knows, you might even become an Avenger in the future. Looks like Professor Xavier didn't want to take Pietro in because of his prior record. That is why Director Fury was instead giving an offer to him. Me, an Avenger, Pietro said with an open mouth, too surprised by Director's words. Looks like he also admired the Avengers despite being a part of Hydra. All right. I am in, he said, accepting the offer excitedly after contemplating for just a minute. Are you sure, Pietro? Wanda asked worriedly since it was a life-changing decision. I am sure, Wanda. I will need to build a new life anyways. And I won't get a better offer than this, Pietro replied. Then, it has been decided that Wanda would go to Kamar Taj and Pietro to S.H.I.E.L.D., Director Fury said, finally settling their matter. Would I be able to meet Pietro? Wanda suddenly asked. While Kamar Taj is an isolated society, you will have chances to meet him often. Albion is also a sorcerer, so he would be able to bring your brother to Kamar Taj should he desire to meet you. Ancient One answered. Then, it has been finalized. Albion, I will not hold you anymore since I know that you are quite anxious to meet certain people. Ancient One and I will handle everything here. So, you can go without any worry, Director Fury said, relieving me of my duties. Thank you, Director. I thanked Director Fury and immediately rushed away. Chapter 161. Chapter 159. As I stepped out of the S.H.I.E.L.D. facility, I hesitantly activated my phone which had been deactivated till now because of security reasons. Once the phone was activated, several notifications of missed calls from Aunt May and Uncle Ben arrived on my phone. All the calls were from around an hour ago. It seems that they were in a hurry since they didn't leave even a message. By now, they must have been informed about my parents from S.H.I.E.L.D. once they arrived in the S.H.I.E.L.D. embassy. That must be why they were calling me. Taking a deep breath, I called Aunt May, ready to tackle the matter. Peter, you finally picked up, Aunt May said, her voice full of joy as she picked up the call. Sorry, Aunt May. I was little busy and I couldn't use my phone because of security reasons. I answered why my phone was switched off. It doesn't matter now. Your parents are alive. In fact, I was just talking face to face with Richard and Mary now. You don't know how shocked we were when S.H.I.E.L.D. called us an hour ago with news that your parents, whom we had thought to be long dead, were actually alive and under Hydra's captivity. Aunt May revealed the great news to me in a single breath, which I already know. Looks like Director Fury's words were indeed true since S.H.I.E.L.D. had informed Aunt May and Uncle Ben about this matter right after my parents had landed. They even let them meet my parents, which would have been impossible if it was not for Director Fury. I know, Aunt May. Actually, I was the one who saved them. I reluctantly revealed the fact since she had no idea about my recent missions due to secrecy reasons. What do you mean you saved them? Aunt May said in a shocked voice, not being able to believe my words. Just ask if Albion was in the team who saved them. I replied. There was silence for a few minutes after my words since Aunt May was obviously confirming whether my words were true or not. Just what have been doing these days, Peter Parker? Aunt May asked in a furious tone as soon as he came back on the call. Just a few weeks ago, you are on your first date with a great girl. And now, you are suddenly attacking global terrorist organizations with S.H.I.E.L.D. What happened? You know how chaotic this world has become, Aunt May. I am just trying to make it a bit more safer. There are people who are participating even though they are much weaker than me. Then, why should I not participate if it means that my participation alone in this battle can save the lives of many good men? Besides, my life is not even threatened in the slightest in these missions. All right, Aunt May said with a sigh as she finally accepted that my words were true. I knew that this day would come when I had seen how powerful you were. I just didn't know that this day would come so soon. You have grown now, Peter. I am proud of you. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't stop a smile from appearing on my face. Even though my mother had returned now, Aunt May had basically been my mother for more than a decade. As such, hearing from her that she was proud of me made me feel warm all of a sudden. By the way, who is this girl Richard and Mary managed to adopt even in their captivity? Goodness, the girl looks like she had been raised in the wilderness. How could your parents raise a girl like that? Aunt May asked. You mean Laura? Yes, that is the girl's name. Do you know any details about her? Your parents are very secretive regarding her, Aunt May asked, clearly curious about Laura. S.H.I.E.L.D. must have asked them to not reveal any information. From what I know, she is a mutant girl born from Hydra's experiments. Since Mother had experience raising a child of similar age, Hydra had put her as Laura's caretaker. From then on, my parents raised her although Hydra still had much influence on her. I told her as much as I could without revealing any secret information. All right. When are you coming to meet them though? You must be pretty excited to meet them after so many years, right? Aunt May asked acceptedly. I don't know, Aunt May. I replied, my voice full of hesitation. As much as I was excited to find that my parents were alive, it was just as hard to acknowledge their existence. I had been literally raised by Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Since they had no child of their own, I was basically their son, even though I still called them uncle and aunt. Because of their financial situation, they had decided not to have a child of their own just so that they could raise me properly. If I went back to my parents who had been found after so many years, it would feel to me that I was betraying Uncle Ben and Aunt May. And all of these feelings didn't even include the fact that I was Albion. It just opened a whole new can of worms. If my parents found that their son had become a superhuman who was literally one of the strongest on Earth and didn't even look like how they had left him, would they even acknowledge me as their son? Peter, I know how you're feeling right now. Yet Richard and Mary deserve to learn about their son whom they have seen for so many years. Honestly, it was obvious for Aunt May to know about my feelings in this matter since she had basically raised me. All right, Aunt May. I will come as soon as possible, I said with a sigh as I promised her before ending the call. As I ended the call, I could see that my hands were shaking. I had not been this much afraid even when I had seen the massive Chitauri army during the Battle of New York. Even when I and Emma had been flung across dimensions and arrived at a parallel dimension, I had only been shocked but never scared. Yet, my hands were now shaking at the near thought of meeting with my family, whom I had thought was long that. It was clear to me that I was not ready to meet them in my current condition. Taking a deep breath, I created a portal and stepped inside. What was in front of me now was the huge X-mansion which had lately become a second home to me. With my emotional condition, I knew that it was obviously not good for me to be alone. Fortunately, I had a lot of people I could rely on. Chapter 162. Chapter 160. Peter, I heard the news. Congrats, man. Never thought that we would find your long-thought-to-be dead parents inside the base. As soon as I entered the lobby, Kurt rushed towards me and hugged me to show how happy he was for me. As someone who had a lack of parental guidance during his growing years, he could relate to me. When I looked behind Kurt, I found that only Bobby and Scott in the lobby currently. Well, it made sense that only boys were here. Otherwise, Emma would have been the first one to congratulate me. Did everything go all right on your side? I asked Kurt as I separated myself from his hug. Once the Wolverine clones had been subdued and the shield reinforcements had arrived, Director Fury had ordered for me to extract the mutant siblings from the base just in case they suddenly changed their minds. As such, I was not there when the mission ended. It went perfectly. Seems like the soldiers in the base were not brainwashed since they started surrendering soon after the commander of the base was captured. Still, you should have seen that bastard's face when I had suddenly grasped his body and dropped him right between the shield reinforcements. That bastard will finally get what he deserves for all the atrocities he had allowed to happen. At least, there were no complications. I said, releasing a sigh of relief. Peter, you know that you can rely on us. You may be the most powerful of us, but we are no slouch either. We more than strong enough to stand our ground against normal soldiers, Scott said, knowing that I was worrying needlessly just because I was not there during the last part of the mission. Sorry about that. You know how our recent missions have gone. Nothing ever seems to be going according to plan. As such, I can't help but worry for all of you. I apologized while also explaining the reason for my conduct. What about the mutant siblings? What has been decided for them? After all, that girl Wanda's mutant ability, or should I say, chaos magic, is quite a time bomb. And her brother Pietro's super speed is not something we can ignore. Bobby asked, curious about the mutant siblings' fate. Ancient One has decided to take Wanda to Kamar Taj to see if she can isolate Wanda from Thawne's influence. If she is successful in doing so, her chaos magic can become quite a trump card for us. I replied, hope Ancient One is successful. I don't want her to suffer just because of her chaos magic. Though she is no innocent girl either, given that she was once in the Brotherhood and now in Hydra. Scott commented. What about her brother Pietro? Kurt asked. Since the mutant siblings had not actively acted against S.H.I.E.L.D. or the government and had not participated in any of Hydra's vile actions, Director Fury is willing to give them a chance. Pietro is going to join the S.H.I.E.L.D. Director Fury hopes that Pietro can become an Avenger if everything goes all right. Let's hope that he is not like his mutant supremacist father, Scott said, still skeptical regarding Pietro. Well, they said that their relationship with Magneto was not anything good. Don't know if it's true or not. I replied. Peter, you are here. A beautiful voice full of elation suddenly sounded from the stairs. Emma had finally arrived in the lobby along with the rest of the girls. As soon as she saw me, she rushed to hug me and even kissed me on my cheek. To think that you would find your parents held hostage at the base, along with even an adopted sister. Congrats, Peter. Emma whispered in my ear. Happy for me. But why are you here? Shouldn't you be with your parents at this moment? Emma asked, puzzled why I was here. Yeah. If I was you, I won't even have left their side. Kurt said in support to Emma's words. That's true. But do you think that they would even recognize me? I said, pointing to my face to show why I had not visited them yet. But they are your parents. I know that it will be difficult, but you should be able to patch up with them in time. You just need to face them. Scott replied insensitively upon hearing my words, clearly not realizing the crux of the problem. Ah. I swear that you boys can sometimes become idiots out of nowhere. Come with me, Peter. These idiots clearly don't understand your feelings. Emma said furiously because Scott and the others were unable to understand what I was feeling right now. She grasped my hand and led me to the garden so that we could have some time alone. As we reached the garden, I could see how the garden literally seemed to glow under the morning sun. Too much time had passed between the attack on the base and the handling of the mutant siblings. It was already another day. You just fear that your parents would find you a little too alien and won't be able to connect you with their son they had left, right? Emma asked softly as both of us sat on a bench. Yeah. I nodded since this was the problem. How many times I have told you to not have an existential crisis every time you have to reveal your true self to someone who knew your past self? Emma asked suddenly with a sharp tone, admonishing me. What? I could only reply with this word because of the sudden change in Emma's tone. Seriously, you worry too much about how the others would see you when compared to the past, Peter. Emma said with a huff, annoyed by this side of mine. But this situation is different, Emma. My parents left me as a child. What about they feel if they see that I don't look a single bit like they remember me to be? I argued. It is because they have only seen you as a child that they will be more amenable to the new you. You would be a complete alien to them, which would make them more acceptable to the fact that you are Albion. Emma replied. But I knew that what Emma said was the truth, but I was still too scared about their reactions. Didn't they adopt a mutant girl there even if they had to fight Hydra to raise her? Emma suddenly asked. They did. I answered in affirmative. If they can adopt a mutant girl, then this surely can accept that their son had obtained powers in the years they were away. Emma argued, making me speechless. Seriously, where does your enhanced intelligence and confidence go whenever this kind of emotional matters are involved? Emma asked with a huff. Thanks, Emma. I needed that. I said with a smile, finally ready to meet my parents after hearing Emma's words. If you had not been so forceful right now, I probably would have worried needlessly for whom knows how long. So, thanks once again, Emma. I just couldn't leave you like this. Besides, I knew that you have always been quite emotional for your family. Emma replied with a blush. Seeing her like this, I couldn't stop myself from kissing her. She didn't stop my advance and easily reciprocated, turning the kiss into a little make-out session. As we separated, I suddenly had a great idea. Hey, Emma. Wanna come with me to meet my parents? I asked her all of a sudden. What? But, isn't it a little too early? Emma replied, flabbergasted by my sudden proposal. Well, the sooner, the better. Like you said now, one just needs to courageously face the situation. I said with a grin. Fine. I will go with you, Emma said, finally accepting my proposal. But let me get ready first. There is no way I am meeting your parents without any preparation. Chapter 163. Chapter 161. Peter, you are finally here. I had thought that you would arrive much earlier. And hello to you too, Emma. Agent Phil greeted both of us as we arrived at the S.H.I.E.L.D. embassy. There were not any complications during the transportation, were they? I asked, worried about the hostages. Fortunately, there were not any complications. However, I would never have thought that we would find your parents as hostages there. Congrats. It is a literal miracle. Agent Phil said, congratulating me. This situation can indeed be called a miracle. How is Laura doing, by the way? I asked about Laura, worried how a sheltered girl like her would react. Ah, you mean that mutant girl who has Wolverine's power? Agent Phil said, finally realizing who I was talking about. She had been rather frightened by the cityscape, but your parents managed to calm her down. She has been mostly silent since then, observing everything silently without reacting much. How many people have you called to meet my parents? I asked since Aunt May and Uncle Ben had been called rather early in the morning, making me curious if there were any others. Aside from your uncle and aunt, we have only called Dr. Connors, who was a colleague of your parents. Agent Phil replied. Was there any other reason? I asked since Dr. Connors was a leading scientist in the same field as my parents. Nothing hides from you, huh? Agent Phil said with a chuckle, praising my perception. We need his help to comb through all the data we have found in the base to see what kind of genetic research Hydra has performed over the years. It is not that we do not trust your parents, but instead we need an unbiased view. Well, it is your job. If you ever need any extra help, you can also call for me. I replied with a shrug, offering my help. We will see in the future, Peter. I believe that we should focus on the present first. Come, I will take you to your parents, Agent Phil said as he gestured for us to follow him. As we moved towards the room where my parents were currently held, I could hear voices coming from the room as we approached it. I am telling the truth, Richard. Even though it is me who is taking most of the credit for the Parcon, it was actually Peter who came forth with its idea and even completed most of the research. Looks like Dr. Connors was regarding my parents about how the Parcon had been created. Just from the joy easily perceivable in his voice, it was clear that he was extremely happy to meet them. He often told me how sad it was that my parents were not with me to see my achievements. But lo and behold, they were actually here now, listening to his words. Men. Agent Phil addressed the two guards who were guarding the room. He gave them a signal which made them leave their posts. Afterwards, Agent Phil opened some kind of control panel by the door and rotated a knob inside it which surprisingly cancelled all kind of sounds escaping the room. This will allow you to have a proper conversation with your parents without anyone eavesdropping on you. I will now leave you. Enjoy your time with your parents, Agent Phil said to me as he started leaving. Thanks, Agent Phil. I thanked him even though I was still going to cast a sound bubble spell, a variation of the sound barrier spell which created a sound isolation bubble in my surroundings with me as the center. Shall we? I said to Emma with a sigh as I casted the sound bubble spell and checked up on my illusion spell for the last time. Emma merely smiled at me and clasped my hand to show her support. She didn't need to say anything since just this much was enough to encourage me. Gathering courage, I slowly knocked on the door ready to face my long-lost parents. Knock. Knock. Oh, it's you, Peter. You are finally here, Aunt May said as she opened the door. I could see my parents inside, talking with Dr. Banner. Uncle Ben was sitting beside them, silently listening to their words with a smile. Laura was also sitting closely, observing all the people in the room with wary eyes. Since everyone was a stranger to her, she was a little hostile to them even if they were literal family to her adopted parents. Peter is here. Mother turned her eyes towards the door immediately as she heard Aunt May's words. She stood up all of a sudden and rushed over to me. My baby boy. You have grown so much, Mother said tearfully as she hugged me. Honestly, I had never thought that I would get to see you again, Peter, Father said with moist eyes as he stood up and joined us in our hug. But you are here now. That is all that matters, I replied, tears filling up in my eyes despite me trying to stop them. No matter how foreign they were to me now, they were my birth parents. Meeting them after so many years when I had thought of them to be dead was simply a miracle for me. Hey, make some space for me too, Laura said suddenly as she stood up and joined us in our group hug anxiously. Who is this girl? I asked, trying to act like I didn't know Laura. Peter, meet Laura Parker, your adopted sister. Although the situation in which we met her was quite unique given that we were hostages, she is now a part of our family, Mother said, hesitantly introducing Laura to me as all of us separated. Hello, Laura. I am your brother, Peter Parker, I said, introducing myself to Laura once again, this time as Peter Parker. Huh. For some reason, Laura didn't reply and instead starting sniffing me. What are you doing, Laura? That is no way to treat your brother, Mother admonished Laura for her weird behavior. That faint smell of lightning. That invisible but overwhelming presence. Laura didn't reply to her mother's word and instead started saying weird things. Oh. Looks like Laura had managed to remember my smell in the few moments I had not concealed it. And to catch this smell after I had already washed. Her sense of a smell must be as strong as Wolverine if not more so. You are Albion, Laura declared what I had feared. Don't try to prank us, Laura. There is no way Peter can be Albion, Mother replied, not believing Laura's words. I sighed, realizing that the cat was out of the bag. I had wanted to hide this fact for some more time since my parents had finally tasted freedom after more than a decade, and this information could be overwhelming for them. Unfortunately, that was no longer possible. I am not lying. Peter is Albion, Laura said, persistent on her declaration. Mom, it's true. I am Albion, I said as I slowly removed my illusion spell, making my face assume my true appearance step by step so that they could see that I was really their son Peter Parker.